Hello, dear students. Welcome to another session of history. And this is our third session on displacing indigenous people. And today we're going to talk about Australia. The Aborigines began to arrive in Australia over 40,000 years ago. And they came from New Guinea. If you look at the map here, just above Australia, you can see New Guinea. And this was connected to Australia by a land bridge. And that's how they could easily come to Australia. Then in 1606, the Dutch travelers sight Australia and they moved here. In 1642, Tasman lands on the island later named Tasmania. If you see just below Australia, the mainland of Australia, you have a small little island below it, and that's Tasmania after Tasman, named after him. Then in 1770, James Cook reaches Botany Bay, and this is known as New South Wales. So you can see that green portion is called the New South Wales. Then in 1788, British Penal Colony was formed and Sydney was founded. In the late 17th century, there were between 350 and 750 native communities in Australia. And all these communities had their own local language. And even today, 200 of these languages are still spoken. The indigenous people living in the north called the Torres Strait Islanders. This term, Aborigine, is not used for these as they are believed to have migrated. They are not the original inhabitants, but they have migrated from elsewhere and belong to a different race. Together, they make up 2.4% of the Australian population. Australia is sparsely populated. That means not many people together are huddled, they are at distant from each other. Most of the towns are along the coast because the central region is an arid desert. So, along the coast, they have water available and they can do cultivation, and of course, they have ports also, so movement is also easier. Here you can take a look at the Aborigines. They have their own culture, they have their own different type of headgear. So a lot many of these groups are still existing there, and you can see how varied their attire and dance form and headgear is. Early encounters between the Europeans and the Australian Aborigines. Captain James Cook, he was a British explorer, and he reported that the natives are friendly. Unfortunately, Captain Cook was killed by a native. We don't know the real reason, and he was not killed in Australia, he was killed in the Hawaiian Islands. Now, this single incident has been used by colonizers to justify all acts of violence just because one native killed Captain Cook. The Aboriginal production has been dramatically disturbed by the British presence, and the arrival of 1,000 hungry mouths put unprecedented pressure on the local food resources. Now, naturally, when large number of people come in, so there is a shortage of the resources. There was large scale destruction of sacred places. Now, those people who came from outside didn't really know the sanctity of those places or how important they were, and they destroyed those places. Then they had a very strange, violent behavior towards land. I mean, over exploitation of that land, which was not taken well by the locals. Then these newcomers seem to knock down trees without any reason. Of course, they must be wanting to do agriculture and things like that and clear the forests. But the local people did not like this. Nearly 90% of the natives died, and these were the original inhabitants, and many of them died because of various reasons. One was exposure to germs. Now, these outsiders who came in, they brought in certain germs which these locals were not immune, and they caught those germs and they died. Then some of them were deprived of their lands and their resources, and they may have lost their means of livelihood. And some of them, must have fought with the new settlers they were coming in, and they must have perished in the battles. Most of the early settlers were convicts, those people who had done some crime, and as a punishment, they were deported from England. And when their jail term was ended, they were allowed to live here as free people on the condition that they did not return to Britain. So, probably they didn't want these convicts to come back to Britain to again go into some kind of criminal activities. So, they told them to stay on in Australia. Now, these convicts, we can understand what kind of background they must have had. So, they felt no hesitation in ejecting the natives from their land. Then the economic development of Australia started under the European settlements. There were vast sheep farms, so they had open land where sheep were there, and of course, the wool of the sheep was used to make very good quality merino wool comes from here. So that became very popular world over. Then there were mining stations, then vineyards where they grew grapes, and then wine was made out of it. Then wheat farming was also done. The grasslands must have been cleared, and they used it for growing wheat, which was again a very important diet. These came to form the basis of the country's prosperity, and how that's how the country began to prosper because of the development in these areas. When the states were united and it was decided that a new capital would be built for Australia in 1911, they suggested one name, and which was wool, wheat, gold. Actually, these were the three very important things which led to prosperity of this land. Wool, as I told you, from the merino sheep; wheat, which the grassland was used to grow wheat; and of course the gold rush, where they found gold in this area. So ultimately it was called Canberra. So they did not pick up that name. A new name they pick up was Canberra, and which is derived from a native word Canberra, and this means a meeting place, maybe a place where people from different parts would come together, meet, and discuss how to go ahead with bringing up the prosperity and economic development of the country. Natives were employed in farms under harsh conditions. Now, the native people who were the actual localites of that area, they were employed by these settlers to work on the farms. But the conditions in which they were made to work were little different from slavery. That means it was almost like slavery. Then comes in various stages of development of Australia. In 1850, self-government was granted to Australian colonies. They were now free to govern themselves. Then the Chinese coolie immigration that was stopped. And 1851 to 61, there were gold rushes in Australia. 1901, there was a formation of Federation of Australia with 6 states, as we saw in the map. And then in 1911, Canberra was established as the capital. And from 1948 to 75, about 2 million Europeans migrated to this land. Of course, white were dominating, they were powerful. So the White Australia policy was that there was a government policy to keep the non-white people out in Australia. And till 1974, such was the popular fear that dark people from South Asia or Southeast Asia might migrate to Australia in large numbers. So they were scared and they did not want them to come into Australia. Then the Chinese immigrant provided cheap labor, but later the government banned the non-white immigrants. Now let's look at the winds of change in Australia, and now this was in favor of the natives. In 1968, there was a lecture by famous anthropologist W.E.H. Stanner, and it was a very impressive lecture, and he spoke of something which really electrified the people. Whoever listened to him, it was about the great Australian silence. Now, he questioned about the silence of historians, why none of them spoke about the Aborigines of Australia. From 1970s, there was an eagerness to understand the natives. So people went on to interview them, to ask them their story, the story of their ancestors. Then Henry Reynolds wrote a book, Why Weren't We Told? That means he questioned that why weren't we told about these natives, the early people? Why we know the history of Australia only from the time the settlers came in? Why not about those people who were actually the original inhabitants? Then Renault condemned the practice of writing Australian history as though it had begun with Captain Cook's discovery, because Australia was not from Captain Cook's discovery. It was much, much before that. Captain Cook came and then he must have written about what he saw there, but nobody knew what happened before that. Since then, university departments have been instituted to study the native cultures. So they have gone around to interact with the people and find out about their culture and their tradition. Galleries of native art have been added to art galleries so that people could get to know about them. Museums have been enlarged to incorporate dioramas and imaginatively designed rooms explaining the native culture. And many of the natives have also started writing their own life histories or telling about their stories, which other writers are writing and printing. Terra nullius, belonging to nobody. Now, from 1974, multiculturalism has been official policy in Australia. Now, this policy has given equal respect to the native cultures and to different cultures of immigrants from Europe and Asia. So, they try to value all the cultures. Now, this government termed the land of Australia as terra nullius, as if it belonged to nobody. And the children of mixed blood, that is the native European, were forcibly captured and separated from their native relatives. So, in 1974, White Australia policy came to an end and Asian immigrants were allowed entry. So, now these are the changes that are happening. In 1992, the Australian High Court in the Mabo case declares that this policy of terra nullius was legally invalid. It was not a correct policy. And they recognize the native claims to land before 1770. So, those people who were the natives of this place and who were there even before 1770, they had claim to this land because they were the original inhabitants of this area. Then in 1995, the National Inquiry into Separation of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children from their families. So, as a result of all this hardships that these original inhabitants had to go through, the pains that they had endured, and from 1999, 26 May was set aside as a National Sorry Day, as an apology for the children lost from 1820s to the 1970s and all the harms that were done to them. They try to remember that by observing the National Sorry Day. So that's about Australia. And with this, we come to end of this chapter. So I hope this will help you in preparing for your test. Thank you very much and have a nice day.